Good afternoon. My name is Trista Keaton, and this is The Source. Today's Source, we will cover this summer's increased temperatures in the Greencastle Music Festival. Last weekend, Greencastle hosted its 14th annual music festival with a 2-day celebration that drew audiences from everywhere. Regional sensations like the Louisville Crashers, the Wombley's Orchestra, and Flying Toasters took center stage, while country star Levi Riggs threw in some country flavor. Local restaurants kept their doors open as the streets buzzed with excitement as Greencastle's annual cornhole tournament and children's games took place. According to the festival's accolades, Greencastle was named Best Annual Event by the Indiana Tourism Association, highlighting its cultural significance and general appeal. Organizer Gail Smith reflected on the birth of the festival and how it has surpassed all expectations, bringing the Greencastle community together to celebrate music, arts, and unity.
Well, because it brings community together in all kinds of ways, and it has absolutely grown our community. Well, we're celebrating our 14th year this year. Started back in 2010 to celebrate Almost Tom's 20th anniversary, and people enjoyed it, and it brought commerce to downtown, and then one thing led to another, and then we created First Fridays that started in 2014, and as people know, that has grown absolutely crazy. And now the interesting thing is people from this community used to go to Danville and Plainfield and Avon to have dinner. Now those communities are coming here because we have the cool.
Greencastle, we have the cool. Well played, Gail. Now we move into this summer's brutal heat and how it can be explained by Earth's oceans. We interviewed Tim Cope, a professor at DePauw, to explain the climate warming process of El Nino.
El Nino is a warm water event in the Pacific, and essentially what happens is there are winds that blow from east to west across the equatorial Pacific, and when those winds are nice and strong, that blows a lot of warm surface water that's been warmed at the equator by the sun off to the western Pacific. And when those winds weaken, that water sort of sloshes back to the eastern Pacific. And when it sloshes back, you get warmer water than normal throughout the equatorial Pacific. And that's what's happening now. That's what El Nino is. And that will change weather patterns across the northern hemisphere. El Nino events are associated with a lot more rainfall on the west coast, even like in Southern California and through the southern US, and are also associated with warmer temperatures in the northern hemisphere worldwide.
Currently not enough legislation to restrict companies and larger industries from overproducing waste that is harmful to our environment. However, the New York Times followed a story where a group of young adults in Montana won their lawsuit against the state. August 14, 2023, a judge ruled that the state failed to recognize climate change when trying to approve fossil fuel projects. This decision for Held versus Montana came during a summer of world record heat and rampant wildfires. This marked a victory for climate activists and became a symbol of hope for those involved in the climate justice fight.
Humans are not very good at dealing with long-term events like climate change. Climate change is kind of like death by 1,000 cuts, and each of those cuts is sort of cutting a little bit deeper now. And so climate disaster sort of seems like a branding strategy to point out that there are going to be more and more and more of these as climate change continues.
We will now move on to the War Room, a segment of The Source, with PAC student and researcher Jake Wood.
And welcome back to the War Room. For our first story, protests in Libya led to the dismissal of the country's Minister of Foreign Affairs after she held a controversial meeting with her Israeli counterpart this Sunday, August 27th. Israel announced that its foreign minister, Eli Cohen, had met with Libya's foreign minister, Najla El-Mangoush. Following this announcement, protests erupted in Libya's capital, Tripoli, and several other cities. Libya does not recognize Israel and has historically been a supporter of the Palestinian cause, so this move is unprecedented in Libyan politics. Due to the unrest and the violation of Libya's Israel policy, El-Mangoush was removed from office and a criminal investigation was launched. Israel has recently been attempting to normalize its relations with Arab states after decades of conflict, but it seems that some nations are not ready to forget the past just yet. Next, we move into the burial of a Russian PMC leader. Deceased Wagner Group chief Yevgeny Prigozhin was buried in St. Petersburg on Tuesday, August 29th, according to his media team. Prigozhin died last week after his plane mysteriously crashed near Moscow. The funeral was small and short, lasting around 40 minutes. Wagner Group is a Russian state-backed private military company and paramilitary organization that has made up a significant portion of the Russian forces in Ukraine and has also worked alongside Russia's partners abroad. Wagner most recently made headlines after Prigozhin and his forces launched a mutiny against Vladimir Putin's government in June, which resulted in an amnesty deal. The future of Wagner Group remains uncertain, especially given its vacant leadership, but the War Room believes that the death of Prigozhin will likely lead to the group becoming more integrated with Russia's military forces, as Putin likely does not want a repeat of June's mutiny. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of The Source. Be sure to follow us on social media to keep up with the real news.